Hey guys, this is Stephanie Farron, the Tech Facilitator at Butler High School, and for the 2017-2018 school year with our Tech Talks, we're going to continue to go further in depth with our Canvas use. This video is an introduction to using outcomes in Canvas. So let's start with what outcomes are. Outcomes in Canvas are a way to track mastery in a course, so our data-driven instruction. Normally, we do this with the North Carolina Standard Course of Study and their standards. However, in Canvas, we can add any type of outcome we like. We can add a prerequisite outcome that, for example, students must understand the vocabulary before they start reading a novel, or they have to understand addition before subtraction. Or we can import the North Carolina Essential Standards. If your course doesn't necessarily fit that, we also can use rubrics to grade. So, for example, an outcome could also be a rubric used to, for example, evaluate the senior project portfolio. So let's take a minute and look at what outcomes look like. So in Canvas, I'm in a course. This is actually my course from last year, so you can see what previous outcomes look like. You would simply click on the left menu down, Outcomes. Now normally when you click that, it will be grayed out because you haven't used it before. You're going to select Outcome if you have them already set up, or we're going to use Find to find them. So first let me show you what outcomes look like, and then I'll show you how to find them. So last year, the Civics and Economics group actually typed these all in by hand. And so we broke them up all the way down by standard. And then each standard we actually filled in what they all are. Now today you guys don't have to do that, because when you click Find, you can actually go through standards and you can come all the way through either Charlotte-Mecklenburg or the high schools, and you can look up any of the North Carolina standards, Common Core standards, anything else for any subject, and then import them all. So no longer do you have to type them all like I did. You can simply click, if you're teaching American history, come down to the bottom of the page and import all of them all at once. You don't have to type them in. Now, once you have those standards in, then you're going to need to go to your question banks and arrange your question banks. So I'm going to look at a test that I have given before that I've attached standards to. So I'll click Quizzes, and this is where if you have a common sandbox for all your teachers, you want to start there. So in Quizzes, I'm going to manage my question banks. Now, you have to be careful. Question banks are created wherever the quizzes are created. So if you typed a quiz not in the common sandbox but in a common course, and then you did not import both the quiz and the bank into the sandbox, they won't be there. So you need to make sure you've got them all in there. So we're going to click the cog wheel and click Manage Question Banks. When we're in Manage Question Banks, you will see all the questions that you should have put into your sandbox or into your course throughout the year. Most of yours won't be by standard or anything else. They'll probably be down in an unfilled question selection. So you kind of need to think about how many quizzes you put into your course and how many questions there should be to make sure they're there. Now, you can organize these by test, as you can tell, like at the top. So for example, the 3 branches test had 42 questions in it. Now, when I start to organize these to outcomes, I'm actually going to create yet another question bank. So if you look right below these first two, the ones that say CNE, these are the state standards with them. So for example, if I click the 3 branches test and I see my questions, I can open them further so I can see them. I can align these to outcomes, but when I click Align to Outcomes, I'm going to align every question in this bank here, the 3 branches test, to one standard. And if you know anything about the civics and economics standards, this is like 20 standards, not one in this test. So what you're going to want to do is take your questions and you're going to want to put them in a bank by standard. So you can add a question bank by each standard. You still can keep them by the test name. In fact, you can have questions in more than one bank. So I have questions that might go with the Constitution and the legislative branch. So you can move them in multiple ones, which is a bigger thing than in SchoolNet. But then once you have them there and you have them all together, that's why step 1 from last year was we had to get our questions imported and all our banks together. Then what I do is I align the outcome to the standard. If I drop any additional question into this bank, it's automatically going to align to the standard on the far right hand side that says NCES CE 1.2. They can be in more than one. So if I decide this question goes to both, when I click this, I can add it to any other bank that I've created. So I don't have to keep it just with 1.2 standard. It can go into multiple ones. So if I've imported all my tests and my banks are by test, then I'll need to pull them out by standard. Okay, and there is a method to this madness. We've already done the hard part of importing them. The next hard part is to organize them. And remember that our goal this year is just 4 common assessments, so maybe we only want to worry about the questions and aligning the standards for the midterm or our benchmarks and not necessarily every test that's in here. Okay? Once you do that and a student takes the test, then it's going to look a little different as well. When you go to the gradebook of the students, you'll see their grades. Okay, that's what comes up by default. But when you click Learning Mastery here on this other side, it will be arranged by the standards that you have imported into your course. So here are all my students. They had their grades, but now these are the standards I've imported in the course. And when I hit a standard that my students have taken a quiz on, then I'm going to see real quickly, green means that they have met the standard goal, yellow means they've met partially, and red means they have not. I can click on each one and each goal to get a bigger and further breakdown as to the goal, the class and where they are, individually where they are, and not only that, but the students are going to see that as well on their side. They'll see grades just like we will, and they'll see a mastery for each one. So for example, this 2.7 that I'm looking at, if you look at the very top, I have this yellow message that means overall as a class they're at yellow, they have partially met the goal, but they're not at green yet. Okay, so that way I can tell. I can manipulate this data further, so I can see that maybe 2.8 they definitely hit that better as a class, and I can see that. The students can see it and we can see it. So that's the purpose of putting the outcome with the question. Now outcomes don't just sit with questions and quizzes. We can add them to assignments, we can add them to collaborations and group projects, we can add them to anything in Canvas. And additionally, outcomes don't have to just be standards. We can set up a rubric that then we can grade off of. So let me real quickly pull up another class and I can show you what that looks like. So it literally is a rubric page where in the past you would type on a rubric and you would say, oh, this is what the student may have mastered, but instead now you'll do it digitally. So the student will get a copy of the rubric and what they've mastered, as well as any feedback, and it will be attached to the assignment, which is just a fabulous, fabulous thing. So when I look at, this is a course from the summer, when I look at an assignment with a rubric and I open the speed grader, it's going to take just a second because I didn't have this pulled up. When I look at the rubric, or the student work, I can click View Rubric, I can adjust this. So this rubric that I've imported into my outcomes then lists exactly what the standards are. I can just click on it to give them a grade. I can give them comments and feedback that will get saved, and when I'm done, it will I save